can you assure us that the financial dependence on the Crown will never be used intentionally or otherwise as leverage over editorial decisions?
Oh, no, of course not. They're independent, and they're a very important part of our democracy because of that. We certainly would never claim to deliver things from the podium of truth in this government.
So,
last.
Minister, the reductions are inevitable, whether they're 2%, 5%, anything. With that, the question really is, are these entities, the sector, or the sectors across this block, arts, culture and heritage, expected to continue to deliver the outputs that they have over these previous 4 years, over the previous terms, with a reduction of funding? With the funding, I'll rephrase that, funding being reduced, with funding being reduced, does that then equate to the minister and the government reducing its expectations on each of these entities and the outputs? So, or is the minister and the government still expecting the same output with less money?
Well, I mean, expecting the same output with less money is one way of describing expecting an increase in productivity. And that may be appropriate in some places, it may be less appropriate in other places. But yes, we do expect different entities to be more efficient with the resources that they have and deliver excellent outcomes. So there'll be a range of ways of doing that. But like I say, the 2% savings are fully expected and required. We will be having a debate over the next couple of years of exactly where and how to deal with the future savings that we need to have as a government in order to, as an important part of our path back to surplus. And so those discussions are still to be had. And how exactly that falls is something that's very much up for debate over the next few years.
We were made aware of the fact that you, as the Minister for Pacific Peoples, have a performance plan that is largely to do with cost savings and how you're going to run the agency with respect to some of the savings that the government is seeking to make. But that's not currently publicly available. Can you speak to that a little bit, Minister?
Well, as I was talking about in the previous session, in terms of 2% savings that are expected right across the board, and I'll remind people who are tuning in for this particular session across the country and across the Pacific, maybe on the shortwave, tuning in, that this is what we're doing here is the annual budget scrutiny. And the hard cold fact is that, notwithstanding all the efforts that have been made so far, New Zealand is still going to be borrowing over $11 billion in this budget. We have a deficit of over $11 billion, and we've got a path back to surplus over the next 3 years. And no country can continue to spend more than it earns for a long period of time without just passing the bill to the next generation. We don't think that's right. We don't think that's right, and that's why we've got a plan to get back. So part of that is an expectation on all government departments to have a 2% savings in place, and the Pacific Peoples are no different to that.
Do you think that it's right that that's not publicly available and that there's no transparency around your performance plan as a minister, particularly given the officials are expected to respond to that and there are indicators attached to it?
Well, I'm quite sure where the mystery is. I thought it's it's well known that we have looking for 2% savings.
No, there's the plan.
So is that
how they're going to get there is well, I mean, that's something that we're all working out together, and I've got every confidence that the Secretary will be able to achieve that.
The plans aren't due until later this year, so they're still under active consideration.
But you're working to a performance plan that the Minister has set for cost savings?
We're in the planning process and just thinking about, remember the parameters are to 2029, so we're just working through what the pathway would be and that will be due later this year.
Are there already indicators for that though?
No, we're just working through that process.
The announcement of 9,000 jobs being cut. So I want to know, thinking around whose jobs are going to get cut at the Ministry of Pacific Peoples, and how is that going to impact the program?
Well, now that's I think the member is referring to the overall public sector job changes, and as you, again, people who are tuning in, back in 2017 when John Key and Bill English and the previous national government left office, there were 47,000 public servants, core public servants. When we came back 6 years later, there were 63,000. There'd been a very substantial increase in the number of public servants, and people might ask, well, were we getting better outcomes from that in terms of the core activities of the state? And so that was a significant increase over the long-term sort of historic average. And so what was set as a goal was to get back to 55,000. So if we look in terms of Pacific Peoples, I just looked at asked about the headcount. So back in 2017, there were 37,000 people working for Pacific, 37 people, full stop. And by 2023, when we came back, there was 138 people. So we had tripled. So there may be some readjustment. We're back to 84 now. And so I don't know the exact sort of makeup of the numbers, but you know the reality was, and the members here need to take acknowledgement of that. There was a hiring spree over an extended period of time, and that was one of the reasons why we're running massive deficits as a country, and why we as a government have to do something about it.
So my question was specifically to do with the announcement from the Ministry of Finance, who specifically talked about the 9,000 jobs within this time period.
Yes.
So how is that going to impact the Ministry for Pacific Peoples?
Well, it will impact the Ministry of Pacific Peoples, but exactly what number has not been allocated.
You haven't got the numbers yet?
No.
When will you have the numbers?
Well, it's something that will be, we've got a period of time to get to that figure, and I expect the ministry, like every other ministry, to be working the way to see what's the best way to achieve that. And there's lots of different elements to that. It may well be that there are some operations that can be shared with other ministries. There may be looking back to how did we manage to do things in 2017 with a certain number of people, and how can we get back to that?
Minister, the numbers you espoused before about Pacifica people, especially here in Aotearoa, you know, they're nearing the 500,000 mark, 442,000 at the last census count in 2023. That was also the year you say there was a huge boost or pop in terms of personnel at the ministry. And now it's been reduced by about 57. We're in 2026, so the numbers have gone down. There was a huge spike, you understand, but still there's huge.
Still more than double what it was in 2017.
The point is that we have not only Pacifica, but Māori disproportionately represented across every system within government control, within each folk, but specifically for the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, with the decrease and the reductions, especially within this ministry, what assurances can you give to all New Zealanders, not just Pacific peoples, but Māori and all peoples across Aotearoa, that you have Pacifica people's backs as the minister, and that the ministry is actually safe under your watch?
Well, the assurance I give people is that this is a government that is focused on fixing the basics and building a future where all New Zealanders, including Pacifica, are well equipped to succeed. And so, you know, one of the most basic things you can do in the health setting is ensure that kids are properly immunised. And notwithstanding all the extra people employed by the previous administration, immunisation rates went down substantially. We used to have, I don't have the exact figure in front of me, about 94% of Pacifica kids immunised when we left office in 2017, and it just fell off a cliff, notwithstanding all the extra money that the previous government was flying around. And so we're focused on getting that back up, and we've made real progress since. Same thing with attendance at school, which is the most fundamental thing to actually make some progress education and be equipped to succeed in the modern world. And we had lamentable attendance rates over the last 6 years, and we are focused on turning that around. So I can give that assurance to anybody tuning in that this is a government that is focused on fixing the basics and equipping Pacifica people to succeed.
Supplementary, how do you then intend to achieve that when this specific ministry has suffered $60 million worth of cuts over the last 3 years, and now they're forced to undergo further cuts?
But because I think, we fundamentally don't agree with the prescription that the previous administration had, which was that you had to have a little separately funded program in place under the label of the Pacific People's Ministry, and that would somehow automatically lead to better outcomes. A lot of what we do is just core business of the government, such as employment schemes and housing schemes, and so there was money going in separately into the ministry for those projects, and we think they can be done better as a core activity of the government. But still, notwithstanding that, having the expertise and understanding that the Ministry of Pacific Peoples provides.